I came across a couple of interesting facts about Auburn's men's basketball team that I'd like to share with everybody. And I think these stats are a big reason Auburn is playing in the Final Four for just the second time in school history. Now, peep this. The average age of their starting five is 23.2 years old. And just so you understand what that means, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the number one seed in the Western Conference, the average age for their team is 24.4. So just 1.2 years older than Auburn's. Now, Auburn's starters collectively have 22 seasons of college experience. Jemele Broome, Auburn's best player, transferred to Auburn after 2 years at Morehead State. Speaking of Jemele Broome, I know I'm not the only one who thinks that guy is a dead ringer for Carlos Boozer. Surely it's not just me. If somebody later discovers that Boozer went to Turkey and got himself a new hairline, forged a new identity to play ball at Auburn, I would absolutely believe it. But anyway, Jemele Broome is 22 years old, a grown-ass man dog, but he's far from the oldest player on his team. That would be Chad Baker-Mazara, Auburn's second leading scorer. My guy is 25 years old. Homie can rent a car without having to pay for additional insurance. And Auburn is the fourth college that he's played at. There are hella old dudes now playing college basketball. It's the new look. Now, 10 years ago, there wasn't a single player in the Sweet 16 older than 23. During this tournament, Baker-Mazara wasn't even the oldest player in the Sweet 16. That distinction belongs to BYU's Trevin Nail, who is 26. Now, while you kind of expect that from a BYU player because those dudes are always damn near 30 since so many of them choose to embark on missions that last multiple years, these long-in-the-tooth college basketball players is just the new reality for the sport because of the transfer portal. Since 2019, the average age of players in the Sweet 16 has gone up, and this year that age was 21.6. So basically, nobody needed a fake ID. But the transfer portal is completely reshaping college basketball in a number of ways. Now that players can transfer as much as they want without having to sit out at all, it's forcing a lot of college teams to reconfigure their entire roster every year. Take Indiana, for example. Mike Woodson stepped down as head coach, and the result is 7 players who have entered the portal, which means new head coach Darian DeVries basically has to put together a brand new roster to compete for the 2025-26 season. It is no longer uncommon for players to be playing at their second, third, and sometimes fourth school. More and more schools are looking to the portal to fill out their roster and fix their deficiencies. As of the recording of this podcast, there were more than 1,000 players in the portal. With such a saturated market of talent, that means fewer spots for high school players. Now, unless you're a program-changing 4- or 5-star recruit, you're going to have a hard time competing with somebody who already is an experienced college player and has experienced some success. And even then, a coach like Rick Pitino, who just brought St. John's back from the dead this season, they still might not mess with you.
Well, we're not recruiting any high school basketball players. Not this year. We've already recruited Ruben, Lefty. Come on, we're building from that. This year, we're not even looking at a high school basketball player because we're losing Davon, Kadari, and Aaron. You can't replace them with high school kids.
Where's the lie, though? And sure enough, Pitino already has snagged former Arizona State guard Josan Sanin, who averaged double figures for the Sun Devils and shot 37% from 3. Look, let's just keep it an unfiltered stack. If you're a college coach making millions and you're presumably trying not to get fired, are you going to put your livelihood in the hands of somebody who already understands how to hoop at the college level? Or in the hands of somebody fresh out of high school whose hand you may have to hold? You picking somebody who already voted in a presidential election? Or are you picking somebody who wasn't even born yet when LeBron won his first championship? The choice seems kind of clear. The trickle-down effect is that the portal game has really messed up the game for mid-majors and HBCUs. This year was just the second time in history that all number 1 seeds made it to the Final Four. You didn't see a lot of upsets because mid-majors were the ones who are harboring some of these hidden gems. The Ja Morants, the Wally Zerbiaks, the Gordon Haywards. Now those guys can move up into bigger programs, though they might be a 7th-year senior by the time they do it. And HBCUs are in the same boat, as Norfolk State head coach Robert Jones explains.
This is now a glorified JUCO. You know, this is like Norfolk State Community College, because it's like when I say that, not because of the people or things like that, but it's just the way it is. JUCO coaches, I have so much more respect for them these days because they have to get a new team every year or every 2 years or something like that, right? Now we got to get a new team every year, every 2. So we basically a glorified JUCO because these kids, until mid-majors, and not just Norfolk State, until mid-majors get the money that high majors have, we're never going to be able to keep kids here, for a long time. I say it's easy to get them, it's hard to retain them.
Beyond that, what has a lot of coaches especially pissed about the portal is the timing. The portal for college basketball opened on March 24th, which was right during the NCAA tournament. So if you were a team in the tournament, you were preparing for your opponent, recruiting from the portal, and also having some real conversations with your current players about whether they intended to come back the next season. Michigan State coach Tom Izzo went smooth off about the portal, calling it everything but a child of God.
If you don't have spots, why are you doing that? So that I can get somebody better, I can get a better girlfriend because the one I got isn't good enough. I don't know, get a better wife because the one I got isn't good enough. I don't know. It's not a loaded question. It's one I really have zero interest in answering because I think it's ridiculous that the NCAA or any other entity put these two things together, is that people like you have to ask these questions, and I value that you have to ask them, and I do get upset when people are talking to our kids about them. I saw what happened at one school that teams get a chance to play in the Sweet 16 and people are entering the transfer portal. Kids got to do what they got to do, and they're really not doing what they got to do. They're doing what their parents or their agents are telling them to do, because they still got to go to practice, go in the same locker room unless they leave the team, and I think that's insane. I think it's disgusting, but that's my own personal opinion. We will always have an eye on the transfer portal. I mean, we get it. It's printed out now. It's we're back to rankings. This is the number 1 transfer in this. This is the number 3 transfer. Some more guys that don't have a clue that do that, and of course we'll look at everything if something happens. But I'm not going in to. I learned something from my boss, Judd Heathcote, and there is a happy medium on this. And I know this isn't normal, but nothing's normal. That's why I coined it, let's be different, okay? But he used to always say to me when I was working my tail off in recruiting, because he didn't do as much, and he'd say, the problem with you new young guys is you're always trying to replace the guys you got instead of making the guys you got better. Is that fair to the guys you got, that you're out spending time on somebody else and you're not taking care of them? Happy medium. You always got to recruit good players, and you always got to have players you recruit. Well, I'm going to tell you something that I learned. If you're loyal to your players and they want to get better, then your obligation is to the people that you brought here. Now, if they don't want to get better or they aren't doing their job, nowadays there won't be as many people that are hanging on to people and letting them. There'll be more runoffs. Could happen here, could happen somewhere else. But the last thing I want to do is cheat my players.
Oh, and he was just getting started.
I'm going to worry today about the guys I got in this program that have done an incredible job this year, and that's it. And if that costs me later, so be it. But Tom Izzo isn't cheating the people that he has that have been loyal to him for this chaos that is going on out there.
The irony: 3 of Michigan State's players entered the portal a couple days after Michigan State was eliminated by Auburn in the Elite Eight, and a week or so after Izzo made this passionate rant about the portal. Now, as much as I think Izzo and other coaches are raising good points, and as much as I know at some point college is going to be full of players with 2 kids, a mortgage, and a receding hairline, and as much as I worry that the high school kid who went to a public school or neighborhood high school and then became a top high school player is basically an extinct narrative, I come back to this. Ain't this how the free market is supposed to work? Now that the NCAA can't restrict player movement, we're seeing what happens when the players are available on the open market. What is happening now is, what is it that this new presidential administration is calling it when trying to change the narrative about this economy tanking? Oh, this is just a period of transition, a temporary pain. I read a report recently in Sports Illustrated that estimated that high-level college basketball players earned about $1 million per year in 2024, which was up from the previous year. Sports Illustrated also reported that a top point guard was deciding between multiple $3 million offers, because that's now the price of doing business if you want a top point guard or a top player in general. The ability to increase their value year over year is why Andrew Brandt, who worked as an agent and in the front office for the Green Bay Packers and is now executive director for the Morad Center for the Study of Sports Law at Villanova, it's why he told me that right now, college athletes have the best free agency in sports.
We have free agency in the NFL after 4 years, in the NBA after 4 years, in the Major League Baseball after 6 years. In college, we have free agency every year. We have this transfer portal that allows players to transfer without penalty every year. Why? Back to the lawyers, lawsuit, when the NCAA tried to prevent that. And now free agency every year. Imagine that. You sign a player, you pay him, could be hundreds of thousands, could be $1 million. You have no assurances he'll leave. Not only leave after the season, but maybe even during the season, or not get enough play time, so he says, screw this, and keeps the money you paid all way. It is free agency without a salary cap. It is free agency all the time. I said to a big-time college coach, like, yeah, I'm sorry, you got to deal with free agency every year. He looks at me, pulls up his chair right to my face. He says, Andrew, we deal with free agency every day.
I hate to tell college coaches this, but things are about to get even crazier. And next week, a judge is expected to approve a $2.8 billion settlement that will allow schools to directly negotiate with players rather than use NIL collectives. Schools that opt into the settlement are expected to receive about $22 million to share with the players across every sport. At most schools, football is expected to absorb the majority of the revenue sharing budget. But since yesterday's price ain't today's price, the budget for basketball players will receive a significant increase. Now, as much as coaches want to complain about the state of the college game, they certainly ain't missing any meals nor a check. A number of college basketball coaches chucked up the deuces to their programs for more money and more opportunity. Dave DeVries left West Virginia for Indiana. Rick Pitino's son left New Mexico for Xavier. Pitino Part 2 replaced Sean Miller, who bounced to go to Texas. So if they're able to take advantage of the open market, why can't the players? A reminder that all of this temporary pain could have been avoided had the NCAA just created a revenue sharing system on their own before the courts forced them to. Now they're scrambling and the coaches and administrators are big mad. I hope they realize that mentality of when we do it, it's cool, but when the players do it, it's a problem. That shit is as old as some of these college guys now hooping. I'm Jemele Hill, and I approve this message.